Welcome to the lecture series on advanced geotechnical engineering. We are introducing ourselves to module 4, stress strain relationships and shear strength of soils. So this module 4 and this is the lecture 1 of module 4 on the stress strain relationship and shear strength of soils. And we are going to cover this contents of this module in the following way. First we will introduce ourselves to stress state, and then we will try to understand about the Mohr circles and Mohr circle analysis, and how to identify a pole and the principal stress space and the stress paths in PQ space. And then we will try to discuss about the Mohr-Coulomb failure criteria and its limitations and correlations with PQ space. Then it will be followed by the stress strain behavior, isotropic compression and pressure dependency, confined compression and large stress compression, and definition of failure, interlocking concept and its interpretations and drainage conditions. Then we will actually introduce ourselves to different types of the shear tests which are actually available to determine the shear strength in the laboratory, we have direct shear tests and the triaxial tests, and the triaxial behavior we will try to discuss in depth, and then the stress state and analysis of unconfined compression, unconsolidated undrained, consolidated undrained and consolidated drained triaxial condition tests with the special conditions, and the special tests, particularly the extension tests for tension and will be discussed. And thereafter we will try to concentrate on the stress paths in triaxial and octahedral plane, elastic modulus interpretations from the triaxial tests, and how this can be used further in understanding analysis of the geotechnical structures. So we have broadly divided this into the following contents, wherein first we will introduce ourselves to Mohr circles, and then we will try to do the identification of the pole and principal stress space and stress paths in PQ space, and failure criteria we will introduce, and then we will try to look into all these contents in a in a systematic manner. The concept of the stress, if you look into it, if you take a cylindrical sample and if you consider this is the so-called plane, then the stress is actually nothing but defined as a force by area. So defined as the force, so this area is is a collectively from the grain to grain contacts as well as the void area. It's also called as the engineering area. We have discussed this while discussing seepage and the permeability. So defined as the force per unit area, that is force that is the internal resistance per unit area. So cannot be measured directly and gives no indications how forces are transmitted to the stressed material, and the manner of transfer of forces in solid crystalline material is different from point to point contact transfer like materials transfer in materials like soil. So the manner of transfer of forces in solid crystalline material is different from point to point grain contact transfer in materials like soil. Now consider here a simple axial stress which actually has been applied with the compressive force F acting on plane PQ. In another figure which is there on the right hand side, wherein a plane PR which is inclined at an angle theta. Now we can actually divide, we have said that on plane PQ the stress is nothing but sigma is equal to F by A, but on plane PR if you look into it, we get the T is equal to F sin theta. That means that you resolve F components into horizontal component as well as vertical component, then we get T is equal to F sin theta, and then with that we actually get the normal force sigma n theta is equal to n by a by cos theta, because a by cos theta is nothing but the area of the plane PR, because it is inclined at an angle theta. So that if A is that area, that plane is PR, so A by cos theta. So with that we can write that sigma n theta is equal to f by A cos square theta, and tau theta is equal to, we can write T cos theta, that is the shear force acting on the area A. With that we can write f by 2A sin 2 theta. So with this we actually have got stresses on the plane PR, sigma n theta and tau theta, and wherein the derivation is worked out like this. The A theta is nothing but A by cos theta, and n is equal to f cos theta, and n is equal to f cos theta, and t is equal to f sin theta. That is, the f is resolved with an angle theta in horizontal component and vertical component, and therefore sigma n theta is equal to which is nothing but the normal force divided by area. Area is nothing but A by cos theta, n by A by cos theta, which is nothing but n is equal to f cos theta. If you substitute that, we get f cos square theta by A. Similarly, and tau theta is equal to T by A by cos theta. So T is equal to nothing but f sin theta. So we can write f sin theta cos theta by A, and with that we can write f sin 2 theta by 2A, because sin 2 theta is equal to 2 sin theta cos theta. So we have written tau theta is equal to f sin 2 theta by 2A. Now in order to locate the maximum shear stress, and we can actually find out the angle of the plane over which this shear stress is maximum. So that we obtain by differentiating this tau theta with theta. D tau theta divided by d theta is equal to 0 for maximum value of tau theta. We get d tau theta by d theta is equal to f by A cos 2 theta. Now for equal to 0, f by A cos 2 theta is equal to 0, then cos 2 theta is equal to 0 for theta is equal to 45 degrees or 135 degrees, and tau theta maximum is nothing but f by 2A. So tau theta will be maximum either at 45 degrees angle, or homogeneous, for homogeneous material there will be another failure plane that is orthogonal to that, and that is 45, and then plus 90 is 135. So tau theta max occurs on a plane with 45 degrees inclination with sigma n theta plane. So that maximum shear stress occurs in a on a plane which is inclined at 45 degrees. That is, we obtained by differentiating tau theta and equating it to 0, and then for conditions of with the cos theta, satisfying the conditions of cos 2 theta is equal to 0, we have got theta is equal to 45 degrees or 135 degrees. With that, tau theta max is nothing but f by 2A. So this variation of the normal stress sigma n theta and the shear stress tau theta with the angle of plane theta in cylindrical test specimen is actually plotted here, and this is the normal stress normalized here. So you can see that sigma n theta is maximum at theta is equal to 0, sigma n theta is equal to 1 for this is the normalized value which is equal to 1, and 0 at 90 degrees, and again subsequently it is maximum at 180 degrees. Whereas, so this is actually variation for how the sigma n theta varies. So with based on this is obtained based on the equation sigma n theta is equal to f by A cos square theta, and this is obtained by using the equation tau theta is equal to f by 2A sin 2 theta, wherein tau theta is maximum which occurs when theta is equal to 45 degrees. So you can see that this theta is equal to 45 degrees means that the f by 2A, that is actually is maximum here, this is f by A. So the tau theta is maximum which occurs on a plane with the theta is equal to 45 degrees, and tau sigma n theta maximum on a plane with theta is equal to 0 degrees. Now let us do a small example for the simple axial stress. A cylindrical specimen of rock having 75 mm in diameter and 150 mm in height is subjected to an axial compressive force of 10 kilonewton. So, we need to find the normal stress sigma n theta and shear stress tau theta on a plane inclined at 30 degrees to the radial direction, and the maximum value of the shear stress and inclination of the planes on which the shear stress tau theta is equal to 1 of the tau theta max. So, the area is nothing but 75 mm diameter. So, with that we can actually get the pi r square, which is nothing but 4.42 into 10 to the power of minus 3 meter square. So, sigma m theta which is given by f cos square theta by a. So, with this we can write f into f means 10 cos square, and we have been asked to determine a plane 30 degrees to the radial direction. So, f cos square 30 divided by area, that is 4.42 into 10 to the power minus 3. So, we get 1696 kilopascals, and tau theta is nothing but f by 2a sin 2 theta, that is nothing but 10 by 2 into 4.42 into 10 to the power minus 3 into sin 60. So, with that 979 kilopascals is the tau theta. But if you look into this, the tau theta maximum which is nothing but which occurs at 45 degree if it is horizontal, which is 45 degrees, or tau theta maximum is equal to f by 2a. So, f is nothing but here 10 kilonewtons divided by 2 into 4.14 to the power of minus 3, which that we have got 1131 kilopascals. And then we have been asked to find out the inclination of the plane on which the shear stress tau theta is equal to 1/2 of the tau theta max. So, this is the inclination of the plane at which actually the shear stress is actually the tau theta max is half of the half of 1 tau theta maximum. So, tau theta maximum which is tau theta, so tau theta max by 2 is equal to tau theta max sin 2 theta. So, with that we actually get sin 2 theta is equal to 1 by 2. So, which is nothing but theta is equal to 15 degrees or 75 degrees, theta is equal to 15 degrees or 75 degrees. This is the this is the inclination 15 degrees or 75 degrees, the inclination of the planes on which the shear stress tau theta is equal to 1/2 of the tau theta max. Now, let us again consider in order to formulate the Mohr circle, consider a body which is subjected to number of forces, like which is shown here, a body which is having an axis passing through O, inclined at an angle alpha, and subjected to forces F1, F2 and so on to F6 forces acting on a body, and in a 2D plane. So, the point of the application of a force within a soil mass could be on a particle or a void. So, the point of application of the force within a soil mass could be on a particle or in a void. As the void cannot support any stress, the stress is nothing but F by A, where A is the gross cross sectional area, which includes both grain to grain contact as well as voids. So, which includes both grain to grain contacts as well as voids. So, as void cannot actually support any stress, the stress is F by A, where A is the gross cross sectional area, both grain to grain contact as well as voids. So, what we do is that this resolution of the forces, if you do F1, F2, F3 into normal and shear components of acting on a plane passing through point O at an angle. So, the expanded view of an element at O is actually shown here. The point O is here, and if you consider the expanded view of an element, and it actually shows like in the element A, B, C, where and AB and plane where the vertical force V is actually acting, and which is nothing but if this area is say unit area, and if this is inclined at alpha, then the area of this one is nothing but area is equal to 1 cos alpha, this area is nothing but 1 sin alpha. So, 1 sin alpha, 1 cos alpha is the areas of AB and areas of BC, and areas of AC is 1. So, with that what will happen is that the vertical force is nothing but stress into area, and horizontal force is nothing but horizontal stress into area. So, the horizontal forces are written here, and the stresses are also, equivalent stresses are also written here. This is the normal force or normal stress, and this is the shear force or shear stress. Now here we need to observe here, particularly here in this, the sign conventions need to be followed consistently. So the compressive stresses are actually positive, because in majority of the geotechnical engineering the stresses are in compression nature. So because of that the stresses are, compressive stresses are positive in nature, and the tensile stresses are negative, and the positive shear stresses produce counter clockwise couple on the element or clockwise movements about a point outside the element. That means that if you are having a shear force acting like this is said to be positive if it is producing a counterclockwise moment about a point outside the element. So that means that if it is producing a counterclockwise moment, clockwise moment about a point outside the element. So if it is a clockwise moment about a point outside the element, then the shear stress is said to be positive. So if let us consider that if the shear stress is actually acting in this direction, downward direction, then in that case it will be negative. So the positive shear stresses produce counterclockwise couple on element and or clockwise movements about a point outside the element. So with this what we do is that we try to resolve the forces in horizontal direction and vertical forces, and then we try to obtain the equilibrium conditions, and then we try to simplify and see that what is the direction which we are going to get. So at equilibrium the sum of forces in any direction must be 0. So we resolve in horizontal direction and vertical direction. With that sigma Fh is equal to 0, where H minus T cos alpha minus n sin alpha. That means that the components have been taken. H is this horizontal direction, this is positive because this direction is positive, and minus T cos alpha. So that is this portion has been taken, T cos alpha, that is this force, and then we have n sin alpha, that is due to the normal force here on the plane AC. Now similarly sigma Fv is equal to 0, where V minus T sin alpha minus n cos alpha is equal to 0. Now by dividing by the respective areas, the stresses on the alpha plane, that is the plane AC, are the normal stresses sigma alpha and tau alpha. That means that the stresses are here sigma alpha, that is the normal stress on the plane inclined at an angle alpha, and tau alpha, that is the plane inclined at an angle alpha with the horizontal, that is AB. Now the stress on the stresses on the alpha plane are the normal stresses sigma alpha and tau alpha. So sigma x sin alpha, because that is the horizontal force, minus tau alpha cos alpha minus sigma alpha sin alpha is equal to 0. Similarly sigma y cos alpha plus tau alpha sin alpha minus sigma alpha cos alpha is equal to 0. So this is regarded as A. By solving A, so then we get sigma alpha is equal to sigma x plus sigma y by 2 plus sigma x minus sigma y by 2 cos 2 alpha, and tau alpha is equal to sigma x minus sigma y by 2 sin 2 alpha. So we have got sigma alpha tau alpha stresses with the by knowing the application of the stresses the element is experiencing, and on a plane which is inclined at alpha. So now these sigma alpha is equal to sigma x plus sigma y by 2 plus sigma x minus sigma y by 2 cos 2 alpha, tau alpha is equal to sigma x minus sigma y by 2 sin 2 alpha. So by squaring and adding we get the equation of a circle. So by squaring the sigma alpha and tau alpha, sigma alpha square plus tau alpha square, and we get the equation of a circle with a radius sigma n x minus sigma y by 2 and at its center at sigma x plus sigma y by 2 comma 0. So when a circle is plotted in tau sigma space, it is known as the, so if we are this is actually the definition, where when the circle is plotted in a tau sigma space, it is known as the Mohr circle of stress, it represents the state of stress at a point in, at equilibrium, and it applies to any material, not just soil. And note that the scales are for the tau and sigma have to be same to obtain a circle. So whatever from the reduced derivation, we actually have obtained sigma alpha and tau alpha in terms of sigma x and sigma y and alpha, and by squaring and adding we actually have got a form of equation which is representing the circle, and that circle is having a radius of sigma x minus sigma y by 2. Sigma x is the stress applied in the x direction, sigma y is the direction applied in this stress applied in the y direction, and with a center at sigma x plus sigma y by 2 0 sigma y by 2 comma 0. So when this circle is plotted on tau sigma space, it is known as the Morse circle of stress. So it represents the state of stress at a point at equilibrium, and it applies to any material, not just soil. So the Morse stress circle is also called as two dimensional. This is in two dimensional. This is graphical representation of stress relationship at equilibrium, and discovered by Kalman in 1866 and developed in detail by Moore in 1882. So this is the development actually goes back into the solid mechanics, and then it is used in soil mechanics. So the stresses are represented in the form of a circle. So considering any point p x y on the circle, equation of the circle can be written as x minus s whole square plus y square is equal to r square, where r is the radius of the circle and x and y are the coordinates of a point on the circle, and s is the horizontal distance of the center of the circle from the origin. So by getting this, you can see that this is the circle where this stress is actually sigma 1. So this magnitude from here to here measured is sigma 1, and this is on the tau 0 space, and sigma 2, this ordinate is sigma 2, and this is the radius of the circle. So this is called as the Moore stress circle on tau sigma space. Now this deduction can be obtained like this. The graphical derivation is that once again we can say that the normal stress acting on any plane at an angle theta, which is nothing but in terms of sigma n theta is equal to we can write like sigma x cos square theta plus tau xy sin 2 theta plus sigma y square sin square theta. So and using sin square theta is equal to 1 minus cos 2 theta by 2, cos square theta is equal to 1 plus cos 2 theta by 2, and with that we actually get sigma n theta is equal to sigma x plus sigma y by 2, sigma n theta minus sigma x plus sigma y by 2 is equal to 1 by sigma x minus sigma y cos 2 theta plus tau xy sin 2 theta. So shear stress acting on any plane at an angle theta is given by tau theta is equal to half sigma x minus sigma z sin 2 theta plus tau xy sin 2 theta. So tau theta is equal to half sigma y minus sigma x sin 2 theta plus tau xy cos 2 theta. So squaring and adding the equation. So again this is actually one form of deriving, we already reduced this, but this also says that the equation which is actually reduced to a form of equation of a circle, where sigma n theta minus s whole square plus tau theta square is equal to r square, and this represents the equation of a circle. So sigma n theta minus s that is this one plus tau theta square is equal to r square. This is nothing but the radius term. So this is represented in the graphical form like this. The graphical form, when you interpret, you will get the number of the unknown parameters can be reduced. So this is the circle with radius r at which with a center on tau sigma plotted at point sigma is equal to s and tau is equal to 0. That is s is equal to sigma x plus sigma y by 2. Which is also nothing but sigma 1 plus sigma 2 by 2. So because this is sigma 1 and this is sigma 2, so the this is also given as sigma 1 plus sigma 2 by 2. Now sigma 1, sigma 2 are the principal stresses as tau is equal to 0 on the x axis. So shearless planes are called principal planes. So sigma 1 and sigma 2 are the principal stresses as tau is equal to 0 on the x axis. So sigma y and the sigma z and tau zy, tau z are the boundary stresses which helps to plot the circle, and sigma n theta and tau theta are the normal and shear stresses on a plane at an angle theta to the sigma z plane, and sigma n theta and tau theta can be found on Mohr circle by travelling clockwise around the circle from the stress point to a distance 2 theta at the center of the circle, and sigma 1 is at an angle alpha to the plane of sigma z. So these are the this is the angle 2 alpha, and this is 2 theta, which is actually shown here. Now let us consider for some examples of the Mohr circles for different conditions of the stresses, that is biaxial compression and tension, and biaxial pure shear. So here when you consider this one with the sigma 1 and sigma 2, both are actually compressive stresses acting on an element, and two dimensional conditions have been selected, and the Mohr circle represents in a towards the positive side. You can see that they center at this particular point, and in case here we have a compressive stress and elongation for the element in the horizontal direction, that is the tension in the horizontal direction, and here there are no normal stresses, only the element is actually subjected to biaxial pure shear. The element is actually subjected to shear like as shown here. So in this case the Mohr circle is actually symmetrical about this tau sigma axis. So the biaxial compression, these biaxial stresses are represented by a circle which plots in positive sigma space and passing through stress points sigma 1 and sigma 2 and on the tau 0 axis. So the biaxial stresses are represented by a circle which plots in positive sigma space, that is the circle is actually plotted in a positive sigma space, and with stress point sigma 1 and sigma 2 on the tau 0 axis, that is these are the points which are actually acting on the tau 0, that this is this plane on this tau is equal to 0 is tau 0 axis it is called, where the stress here at this point where this meets the the sigma axis, that is called sigma 1 here, and where the circle intercepts this point is sigma 2. The center of the circle is located on the tau 0 axis at the stress point that is sigma 1 plus sigma 2 by 2, and the radius of the circle has a magnitude of sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2. So the radius of the circle has a magnitude of nothing but sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2, and the maximum shear stress also is sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2. So this is the Mohr circle, which is so for biaxial compression the Mohr circle will be in the on a tau sigma space, it will be on the positive sigma space, that is the positive sigma space, that is this is actually called as positive sigma space. Then the center is located at the stress point, that is sigma 1 plus sigma 2 by 2. So the center is actually located at a stress point sigma 1 plus sigma 2 by 2, and the radius of the circle has the magnitude of sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2, which is nothing but, so the radius of the circle is nothing but the maximum shear stress ordinate, which is nothing but the sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2, that is this is the the maximum shear stress located here in the positive side and negative side. And biaxial compression or tension, that means the element is actually subjected to both biaxial compression and tension. In this case the stress circle extends into both positive and negative sigma space. So the sigma space which is towards the positive side is called as a positive sigma space, and sigma space which is actually towards the negative side is called the negative sigma space. Similarly tau, that is the tau space which is above is called as the positive space and below is called the negative space. The center of the circle is located on the tau 0 axis at stress point sigma 1 plus sigma 2 by 2 and has the radius sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2, and this is also the maximum value of the shear stress which occurs at the direction at 45 degrees to the sigma 1 direction, and the normal stress is 0 in directions plus or minus theta to the directions of sigma 1, where cos 2 theta is equal to minus sigma 1 plus sigma 2 divided by sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by sigma 1 minus sigma 2. So, cos 2 theta is equal to minus of sigma 1 plus sigma 2 divided by sigma 1 minus sigma 2. So, for the biaxial compression and shear, you can see that this is the compression and this is the tension, no shear forces. Then in that case the Mohr circle is actually extends to positive sigma space and then negative sigma space also, and the center is sigma 1 plus sigma 2 by 2, and the shear force is maximum shear force is sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2, and the radius is nothing but sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2, and this also the maximum value of the sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2 is also maximum value of the shear stress, which occurs at the direction 45 degrees to the sigma 1 direction, and the normal stress is 0 in direction plus or minus theta to the direction of sigma 1, where cos theta is equal to minus of sigma 1 plus sigma 2 divided by sigma 1 plus sigma 2. And now a case of biaxial pure shear. In this case the circle has a radius equal to tau xy, which is equal in magnitude to tau yz but opposite in sign. The center of the circle is at tau 0 and sigma 0. The principal stresses are sigma 1 and sigma 2 are equal in magnitude but opposite in sign, and they are equal in magnitude to tau zy. So, the directions of sigma 1 and sigma 2 are at 45 degrees to the directions of tau zy and tau yz. So, the circle is represented like this, wherein with that you have got sigma 1, the major this sigma 1 here, ordinate here, and sigma 2 here, and this is the shear stress, that is tau zy and tau zy and tau yz is represented like this, tau yz and tau zy. So, this is in case of the biaxial pure shear. Now, consider an example where the stress on a circle and a soil mass are shown in the following figure. We need to determine the principal stresses using Mohr circle, and the element is actually subjected. So, this axis is y axis and this axis is z axis, and this plane is AB and this plane is AC. So, this plane is horizontal plane and this plane is vertical plane, and this is an inclined plane, inclined at 45 degrees to plane AB, and these are the shear stresses and these are the the horizontal stresses. So, here it is given as 50 kilopascals in the horizontal direction compression, and this is also compression 100 kilopascals, and the shear is 25 kilonewton per meter square. So, the magnitude of the normal and shear stresses on plane AC is shown in the figure. Plane AC, we need to determine what are the magnitude of the normal and shear stresses on plane AC, which is actually shown in the figure here, and the magnitude of the principal stresses using Mohr circle. So, the available information is that sigma y, that is the stress acting on the horizontal direction, that is the 50 kilonewton per meter square in the y direction, and sigma z 100 kilonewton per meter square, that is the stress in the z direction, and then tau yz, that is tau yz is 25 kilonewton per meter square. The tau yz which is acting, the shear acting on this plane is 25 kilonewton per meter square. So, the step 1 in constructing the Mohr circle is that mark a point sigma y tau yz and point q, that is sigma z comma tau zy on the tau sigma coordinate system. So, we have a tau sigma coordinate system, and we marked actually in the tau sigma space, we marked point P and Q. Then in the next step is that join P and Q with a straight line, then draw the circle. So, draw the circle considering intersecting the point of S axis and line PQ, that is the point O as the center, and the distance OP as the radius, So, with this what we have got is that we have got a circle now, that is the Mohr circle, and this is called as Mohr circle, Now the principal stresses are nothing but the point where this the plane where the shear stress is 0, principal stresses where the plane where is the shear stress is 0, that is where the Mohr circle cross a sigma axis. So with the by measuring from the graph we can actually get the sigma 1 as 110.36 kilopascals here, and sigma 2 here as the 39.64 kilopascals, that is from the measurements of the graph. Now we can actually further find out angle 2 alpha, that is 2 times the angle between sigma jet plane and major principal plane, and major principal plane is inclined at 22.5 degrees to the sigma jet plane, and minor principal plane is inclined at 112.5 degrees to the sigma jet plane. So sigma jet plane is nothing but the plane on which sigma jet acts. So after this, then plane inclined at 35 degrees to the the sigma jet plane, and the stresses on the plane at 35 degrees to sigma jet plane is obtained by the point. At this point, so we need to get if you look into the problem, magnitude of the normal and shear stress on plane AC, which is shown in the figure. So this plane is inclined at 35 degrees. So the 35 degrees is actually represented here, 35 degrees to the sigma jet plane, and this is actually 70 degrees. So 35 degrees to sigma jet plane, when you put that, this is the point where we get the sigma n theta, that this horizontal distance ordinate is sigma n theta and vertical ordinate is tau theta. So from the measurements of the graphically we can get sigma n theta is equal to 42.96 kilopascals and tau theta is equal to 14.94 kilopascals. So this is how what we have got is that from the graphical interpretation we actually have got sigma n theta and tau theta for the type of the stresses which are actually given by using the Mohr circle concept. Now the 3-dimensional stresses on a cubical element, the elements are actually subjected. Suppose if you consider an element within the soil, it is subjected to the following stresses in x and y and z directions, and on each plane there will be one vertical stress and two shear stresses. So you can see that on this xy plane we have vertical stress and the shear stress tau xy and the tau zx, which is actually acting here, and similarly on this plane sigma y, and then these are the stresses, shear stresses which are actually acting, and similarly on this plane and on this plane, which are the stresses are shown on the visible planes clearly. So these are actually represented in the matrix form like this. The 3-dimensional stress at a point can be represented as T alpha, T sigma is equal to sigma x tau xy tau zx tau yz sigma y tau yx and tau xz tau xy and sigma x. Sigma terms are the normal stresses and tau terms are the shear stresses. So please note that sigma terms are the normal stresses, tau terms are the shear stresses, and the total 6 terms are independent, and then we have sigma x, sigma y and sigma z, tau xy, tau yz and tau zx. And then if the references axis are in the directions of 1, 2, 3, and which is nothing but the direction of the principal stresses, then in geotechnics we are actually suppose if you are having a cylindrical sample or a let us say cubical sample, we have if it is in the major vertical stress direction sigma 1, then it is called sigma 1 as the major principal stress, and sigma 2 as the intermediate principal stress, and sigma 3 as minor principal stress. For a sample which is cylindrical in nature, being sigma, the sample will be having a vertical stress, that is sigma 1 major principal stress, and 2 the stresses parallel to the acting on the plane, that is nothing but sigma 2 intermediate principal stress and minor principal stress. On the cylindrical sample as sigma 2 is equal to sigma 3, we generally refer it as sigma major principal stress and minor principal stress, that is sigma 1 as the major principal stress and the sigma 3 as the minor principal stress, and the sigma 2 as the as the intermediate principal stress. So, the Mohr stress circle, particularly in the 3-dimensional stress conditions, is no simple method exists to draw a Mohr circle to represent the general case. All normal and shear stresses acting on all the 6 faces of a cube. So, 2 simple cases can be represented by using the Mohr circles as given below, and one is that a cubical element having only normal stresses on its faces, and a cubical element which has only normal stresses acting on pair of opposite faces, and both normal and shear stresses on remaining 2 pairs of faces. So, with this slide what we wanted to convey is that no simple method exists to draw a Mohr circle to represent a general case, and all normal and shear stresses acting on all the 6 faces of a cube. That means that all normal and shear stresses acting on all 6 faces of a cube cannot be represented, and 2 simple cases can be represented by using 3 Mohr circles. A which is the case A is the cubical element having only normal stresses, and another case which is cubical element which has only normal stresses acting on pair of opposite faces, and both normal and shear stresses on the remaining 2 pairs of faces. So, it can be proved that the stress conditions on any plane with within the element must fall within the shaded area, but it is usually sufficient to be able to determine the stresses on planes which are perpendicular to at least one opposite pair of element boundaries or boundary faces. So, stresses on these planes lie on the circle bounding the shaded area. So, these stresses for the case A, where a block which is actually having only normal stresses, you can say the sigma 1, sigma 2 and sigma 3 are shown here. So, in this case the Mohr circle is actually represented as this is the circle, and with sigma 1 and sigma 3, and sigma 2 is the intermediate stress, that is the intermediate principal stress. So, here in this case A, it can be proved that the stress conditions on any plane within the element must fall within the shaded area, that is this is the shaded area, and it is usually sufficient to be able to determine the stresses on planes which are perpendicular to at least one opposite pair of element boundary faces. So, in case B, it is represented where we are having normal stresses and at least 2 faces are actually having the shear stresses. Then in that case we draw 3 Mohr circles here. This is the Mohr circle 1 and second and then third one. So, now here first drawing this Mohr circle, and then after knowing this as the major principal stress and this as the minor principal stress sigma 2 and sigma 3, then this is the third Mohr circle, and the second Mohr circle as once we have this one, and that's the minimum stress, that is the third Mohr circle. So, in case of case B, which depicts a cubical element with compressive normal stresses acting on all 6 faces and shear stresses on 2 pairs of opposite faces. So, again in this case the stresses on all planes within the element lie within the shaded area, and with the stresses on all planes which are perpendicular to at least one pair of element faces lying on one of the boundary circles. The sequence of drawing these circles consists of first drawing of locating the stress points sigma z, tau z y and sigma y and tau z, then drawing the circle. That means that first we have to locate these sigma z and tau z y and sigma y and tau y z, and drawing the circle 1, that is the first one is that drawing this circle 1, locating these 2 points and then dropping here perpendicular, and these are the sigma z, this sigma z axis, that is from measured from here, and this is sigma y. So, this drawing this points, then drawing the circle through these with the center on the tau 0 axis. So, this is the first Mohr circle which is drawn. The second one locates the principal stresses sigma 1, sigma 2. So, once we draw the circle 1, we have got the opportunity to identify sigma 1 and sigma 2. Then as the third principal stress is known now, the circles 2 and 3 can now be circles 2 and 3, 2 and 3 can be 2 and 3 can be, that is 2, and then finally the third circle that is the with the intermediate principal stress sigma 2 can be drawn. So this locates the principal stresses sigma 1 and sigma 2, and as the third principal stress is known, the circles 2 and 3 are drawn subsequently. So in this case sigma 1 is greater than sigma 2 and then sigma 3. So as it has been told in geotechnics, it is actually convenience to use sigma 1 as the major principal stress, sigma 2 as the intermediate principal stress, sigma 3 as the minor principal stress. So let us look into a problem wherein a piece of sandstone is cut into the shape of a cube with 100 mm long edges, and the forces of 5 kilonewton, 10 kilonewton and 20 kilonewtons are applied respectively and uniformly and normal to the 3 pairs of the faces of the cube. So a piece of sandstone is cut into the shape of 10 centimeter in size, having the long edges of size of the edges 10 centimeters, and forces of 5 kilonewton, 10 kilonewton and 20 kilonewtons are applied uniformly and normal to the 3 pairs of faces of the cube, and evaluate the major, intermediate and minor principal stresses in the rock, and subsequently draw the Mohr circles of the stress, and we need to also find out what is the maximum shear stress in the rock. So by knowing the forces the element is actually subjected, then we can actually calculate what are the what is the maximum shear stress within the rock, and what are the major and intermediate and minor principal stresses the element which is the sandstone element or a piece of rock is subjected. Now for this what we take is that the area of the each face is A is equal to 0.01 meter square, wherein there is nothing but 10 centimeter into 10 centimeter, 100 centimeter square. In terms of meters, it is 0.01 meter square. Hence 3 principal stresses, major principal stress sigma 1 is equal to 20 into 10 to the power minus 3 divided by 0.01, that is 2 megapascals, and intermediate principal stress which is nothing but sigma 2 which is 10 into 10 to the power minus 3 divided by 0.01 is 1 megapascal, and minor principal stress sigma 3 is equal to 5 into 10 to the power minus 3 divided by 0.01, that is 0.5 megapascals. Now we have got sigma 1, sigma 2 and sigma 3 the stresses. This we have calculated based on the sandstone, which is with nothing but the force which has been subjected divided by that area of the face of that particular sandstone rock piece, and with that we have got these the major principal stress as 2 megapascals and intermediate principal stress as 1 megapascal, and minor principal stress sigma 3 as 0.5 megapascals. And with this what we have got is that now on the tau sigma space where the tau, the scale which is actually here is on the equal scale, with the equal scale when you represent, and we can write that on the sigma which is here. So the major principal stress being the sigma with this as sigma 1 and sigma 2, that is intermediate principal stress is 1 megapascals. So with 1 megapascals by 2, that is 0.5 megapascals as radius, you can draw a circle. So with that we get this first circle. Then once we get this one, then with this as sigma 2, that is 1 megapascals, and sigma 3 as 0.5 megapascals. So 1 minus 0.5, that is 0.25 megapascals as radius. We can draw another circle, that is this one, and then one more circle is actually possible, that is sigma 1, and that is the major principal stress and minimum principal stress, that is 0.5. That means that 1.5 megapascals as radius. So we have drawn circle 1, circle 2 and then circle 3. So in this we can actually see that the maximum shear stress in the element which is actually subjected, which is the radius of the largest Mohr circle. So the maximum shear stress is nothing but the the radius of the largest Mohr circle. So if you look into this, the maximum shear stress which is actually given by this circle is nothing but 0.25 megapascals, and here this one is nothing but 0.5 megapascals. But however, if you look into this circle which is having a 0.75 megapascals as the radius, so the maximum shear stress is yielded, the element is actually subjected is about 0.75 megapascals. So what we have done in this particular problem is that we actually, by knowing the forces subjected to the by the cubical shape sandstone piece, we actually have calculated what are the stresses acting on the major and intermediate and minor principal stresses, and then we have drawn the Mohr circle of stress, and then we also find out what is the maximum shear stress in the rock piece. So for this, what we have done is that we actually have calculated the stresses with force by area, and then we plotted these stresses on the tau sigma space with drawing 3 Mohr circles, wherein in order to deduce the maximum shear stress, here the tau max is actually here indicated, and this circle actually yields the the maximum shear stress. So the for the type of forces which has been subjected, the rock piece actually has been subjected to a shear stress of about 0.75 megapascals. So if we are having, say, this much shear stress, and in order to avert the failure along that particular plane, then the material should have adequate shear strength. So the shear strength which is actually counters the shear stress which is actually resulted due to the external loading system. So in our further lectures, what we try to look into is that how further we discuss about on this concept of these Mohr circles, and how to locate a pole, and then how this different element conditions can be used in understanding about the stress states in a for the elements, and then we deduce we connect ourselves to the stress paths in the PQ space.